Welcome to Virtual Visits at the New York Academy of Medicine Library. I'm Arlene Shaner, the Historical Collections Librarian at the Academy. Days are warmer and longer, and the trees are putting out new leaves, signs that it's time to get out and explore. After months of being stuck indoors, a change of scenery might be just what we need. So this month's virtual visit takes us on a tour of a few of New York's many walking trails and health resorts, past and present. A century ago, the three friends shown here, Raymond Torrey, a journalist who wrote weekly hiking columns for the New York Evening Post, Frank Place Jr., a librarian who worked at the New York Academy of Medicine for over 40 years, and Robert Latu Dickinson, a well-known obstetrician, gynecologist, and artist who created many of his illustrations from a studio in the NIAM building, published a book of hikes that one could take within a 100-mile radius of the city. Dickinson made all the drawings, and the book opens with two extraordinary panoramic views inspired by photographs. The city of climbers, gazing out over Manhattan and annotated with many landmarks, and a second view that begins at the top of Central Park, follows Manhattan up to its end in Inwood, and looks further north into the Bronx. Like all good walk books, this one offers detailed itineraries to guide the user. The section on making one's way through different areas of Central Park offers suggestions of routes through the park with side visits to some of the attractions on the surrounding streets. Here we can see the lake, with two men using the park in much the same way it is used today, one fishing from the bank and the second in a rowboat. And here's a view of the northern end of the park, with its early 19th century blockhouse and steep, rocky outcrops. Just to the north of Central Park is Morningside Park, with the Cathedral of St. John the Divine rising above the drive that hugs the western edge of that park, and St. Luke's Hospital, now known as Mount Sinai Morningside, visible beyond the cathedral. Another view depicts Riverside Drive, along the banks of the Hudson River, just a few blocks further north and west, with Grant's tomb tucked between the trees in the center of the image. And then continuing north along the river, we get up above Washington Heights and into Inwood, with a view drawn from the New Jersey side of the river looking back south over Manhattan, and then a second one from the Manhattan side looking north, with the Palisades rising along the western bank of the Hudson. At the very northern tip of Manhattan sits Inwood Hill Park, which contains the remnants of Manhattan's old-growth forest, as well as a set of caves, pictured here, that the Native American Lenape people, who were displaced by the arrival of Europeans in New York, used as a seasonal campground. Other walks take us out of the city proper, to places like the Croton Aqueduct in Van Cortlandt Park, the Lighthouse in Montauk on the North Fourth of Long Island, and many mountain trails and waterfalls. Shown here is Kaaterskill Falls, New York's highest cascading waterfall, tucked up in the northern reaches of the Catskills. We'll circle back around and bid our three intrepid hikers farewell now, having shared just a bit of what they called the Wanderland they viewed as a wonderland that we can still enjoy today. The New York Walk Book has never gone out of print and is currently in its 7th, although much revised, edition. For the rest of this tour, we'll stop in at a few of the health resorts that grew up around some of New York's famous mineral water springs in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. We'll start by taking a quick tour of Richfield Springs, located in Otsego County, New York, close to Cooperstown, and home to a sulfur spring of the same name. Easily reached by rail or steamer at that time, the resort offered a whole range of amusements for the summer visitor. As we can see from the first few pages of this promotional pamphlet, the resort offered lovely scenery, scenic drives and walks, fishing, and horseback riding lessons, among other entertainments. Daily orchestra concerts and performances were also part of the package. Here's a view of the spring house itself, with a fancy carriage and horses in the front, and a game of tennis, complete with a small gallery of spectators. But the new bathhouse, which opened in 1890, was clearly one of the star attractions. Constructed above part of the spring itself, there was a spacious gallery on the main floor, where visitors could pick up glasses of the water for drinking. Separate wings contained rooms for men and women who wished to take private baths of many sorts. There were Turkish baths, steam rooms, plunge baths, and massage rooms, among others. For those who suffered from respiratory ailments, there were special inhalation rooms. At the rear of the building, between the two main bath halls, lay a large swimming pool. Swimming lessons were offered, and of course there were designated hours for men, women, and children to use the pool. Visits to local waterfalls, park grounds with lots of outdoor seating, and boating on the lake provided lots of other ways to spend a restful vacation. The next resort we'll visit is the Glen Springs, situated above Seneca Lake in Watkins Glen. Known as the American Nauheim, the resort was modeled on Bad Nauheim, one of the most famous German spa resorts, also known for its brine spring water. This panoramic view of the Glen Springs Resort shows just how impressive the complex was. What began as a modest 20-acre resort grew to 270 acres of grounds and buildings in the early 20th century. The resort attracted an international clientele, but closed on January 1, 1942, since World War II caused it to lose many of its visitors. After the war, Cornell University briefly used the campus to house returning veterans, and it passed through several other owners before most of the buildings were demolished in 1996. There were abundant opportunities for peaceful contemplation in a rocking chair on one of the verandas or out on one of the many woodland paths. By the 1920s, a large golf course had become a big draw at the resort, in addition to the other outdoor activities and the baths themselves. All kinds of hydrotherapeutic treatments were available to visitors, as we can see from these photographs of many different treatment rooms. Brochures about the resort provided detailed analyses of the water that issued from all of the springs, comparing their virtues to their European counterparts. And of course, the natural beauty of Watkins Glen included its multiple waterfalls, gorges, and hidden walkways. Even though the resort no longer exists, thousands of hikers still visit Watkins Glen State Park each year. We'll end with a quick visit to Saratoga, where you can still visit the Spa Park Mineral Springs today to bathe in the mineral baths, wander through the park grounds, and purchase both still and sparkling waters in their distinctive blue bottles. As this brochure makes clear, the Saratoga Springs were well known to the Mohawk Indian population long before white colonists appeared and displaced them. By the mid-19th century, there were bathhouses offering health treatments in Saratoga, and several different kinds of waters were bottled for sale beginning in 1872. The new spa, pictured above in the center image of this current brochure for the park, was the first major New Deal construction project and opened in 1935. It still welcomes visitors today. In addition to the springs and the spa, a performing arts center, theater, and museums offer visitors lots of other recreational opportunities. We've come to the end of our adventures, but I hope this virtual visit encourages you to head outside to explore some of the natural landscape around you. And remember, if you want to learn more about health resorts or anything else in the collection, you can always find us at nyam.org/library.